Hey, welcome to Wolf's Watch. I'm Wolf, and thank you for joining us today. Please click the like button. Be ready to comment, ask questions, participate with us. Today, we have a special guest that I met in Long Beach, California recently. The author of From Park Bench to Park Avenue, Anthony Brown. Thank you so much for joining us today, Anthony.
Well, thank you for having me.
And as you're watching this, here's the beautiful synchronicity that happens in life. I was shopping for a friend of mine that's in recovery every year. You get him a medallion that honors the number of years that he's been clean and sober. And I was at my favorite place in Long Beach to pick up this year's medallion. And Anthony comes walking in with a stack of books, his new book, Park Bench to Park Avenue, and we started talking. And the book, Anthony, your book was a great read. There's just so much information there. So as you're watching this, these are the kind of things that happen. It seems like just a coincidence. And Anthony, we're both laughing about that, right? Because we don't really believe in coincidence. And, we had a quick chat, and it led to having a conversation today. And I'm glad you're watching us with us. And Anthony, again, thank you for taking the time out of your hectic schedule to have this conversation this morning. For reading your book, there's something that I just couldn't put down because it's so insightful, and it gives such a different perspective on what life is like when you're living on the park bench, and what it takes to really start to make a transition. So how did that happen? I mean, how did you go from park bench to the life you're leading today?
It is an adventure because I was homeless for 23 years, and
wow.
The fascinating part about that is I was homeless since I was 14, and prior to that there was a lot of early childhood trauma and things of that nature. So me being homeless was my attempt to hide from myself. And so being out there for that many years, I was in survival mode, and that became part of my norm. And after doing that for so long, I just got to the point where I was just tired of being in that situation. Being homeless for 23 years, I got involved in drugs, and been arrested several times. Never got any education, never got anything accomplished, and then came one day where it seemed like the stars was aligned, and a police officer that continued to arrest me asked me if I wanted some help, and for some reason I accepted it. I told him yes, I would like some help, and that started my journey into where I am today.
Yeah, that's amazing to be 23 years. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. And I've been involved in the recovery community for a long time as well, but I didn't have that experience of coming from the streets. How did you, what was the key to you being successful in being able to take advantage of the help that was offered and begin to thrive, where so many, it's just like so many people struggle with that and many don't make it?
Once I accepted the help, because it was new to me. I was fortunate that the police officer knew somebody that was willing to take me into a safe place that was completely different than being on the streets. And I just made a small commitment to myself. I mean, my commitment was just don't leave. That's it. No matter what I thought, felt, just don't go. Just sit still. And then I got involved with the people around me, and I started to speak with them, and I got a little trust going on. And so that helped, just making those small commitments and small goals. And I've been doing that my entire career. Once I got that goal or that commitment of not leaving, then I heard certain things. Then I said, okay, I'm going to commit myself to this 12-step program. I'm going to commit myself to going to get a job. I'm going to make that commitment. And every time I was able to accomplish what I committed to, it made me feel good. And feeling good helped with my self-esteem, my self-worth, and that allowed me to take that next indicated step.
Well, and also in your book, you talked about how the first time that you took advantage, and I believe it was when the police officer had offered to help you, led to actually having a bed and a roof over your head for the first time in years, in how the impact of being told, look, if you want to leave, you're free to leave. Just feel free to, but please walk out the front door. Just don't just jump over the back fence
Yes, yes.
to take
You,
off.
it's interesting how those little small things mean a lot,
Hmm.
because when you're out in the street for so many years, or coming from my background, you have major trust issues. And
Mm-hmm.
I come from an environment that if you are offering me something, there's a catch to it. And so I'm always on the lookout for, okay, what's the catch? And when this individual picked me up from jail to take me to this treatment center, the first thing she said was, Do you want a cigarette?" And I'm like, "Okay,
Wow.
who is this lady?"
Yeah.
But she was nice. And then after that, she asked me if I wanted to go out and eat Chinese food, you know. And again, it's like, who is this lady? Why are you being nice to me? And then that's when she told me, "We're gonna take you to this place. Do me a favor. If you're gonna leave, just walk out the gate. Don't jump over the fence." And that was new. And I'm like, well, what is this all about? It sparked my curiosity.
Hmm.
And so I became a little bit more open-minded and less defensive. And because it was in the beginning, I felt like a stranger in a strange land. I come from the shadows of hanging out in alleys, and I'm put in this treatment center where everybody's happy, walking around and hugging. And, you know, I've I'm the I believe in humor, and the type of roofs that I was able to get for myself over my head came in the fashion of some gated communities up and down Northern California. And here's a place where they offered me a place to live, and and I took advantage of that. And again, it was foreign, and they would tell me things like, "Well, you have to make your bed," and I'm like, "Well, why?" They're like,
Yeah. Right.
because it's your bed. And then they sprung on another little surprise. Well, you have to do other chores. Now, a person of my caliber being asked to mop floors, it was kind of beneath me. Now I'm a homeless man,
Hmm.
and you're saying mop some floors, and what it really translates to is do some work. I'm like, wait a minute, you know. But I made a commitment, and so I did it. It didn't kill me, and the rewards were people would smile and say, "Well, we're glad you're here." I was welcomed. I felt like I was part of. And as that started to seep in, the old behavior and thinking started to drift away. My thought patterns drifted from, well, what is it that they want from me, opposed to, I'm glad that they have me.
Hmm.
And that became sort of like my new vision. And I was looking forward to being part of that circle because it felt good. I mean, don't get me wrong, in the beginning it was rough. I had some encounters of drifting backwards because I spent 23 years out there defending myself. I spent years prior to that trying to run from my childhood, and
Mm.
all of this, happened. I was 37 years old, and I'm put in a situation, and change is hard for a 37-year-old person. But
Well,
they were
and also, is there also more inertia also behind that? Because it's not like you're returning to something that you had experienced at a different point in your life,
right, right. It was
right?
it was
I
all
mean,
new.
because yeah, this is something you had never experienced before, and I hear a lot of times, when I hear people talk about the concept of rehabilitation, and it's like, well, that implies you're helping someone return to a path that they'd been on in life earlier, but that's not the case a lot of times.
Hmm. Yeah, it was. I'm glad I didn't return back to the life that I had.
Right.
Okay, I was given a new life,
Hmm.
a complete makeover, and it
Wow.
was it was a culture shock, you know, and everything. I think that's one of the things that kept me going. It seemed like everything was a Christmas gift, you know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm like, wow, this is good, you know, this is fun, this is exciting, and then under the same token, I felt awkward, and so this is
Hmm.
embarrassing too, you know. I didn't have the skills to go out and know how to look for a job, you know.
Mm, yeah.
I know how to hustle, But as far as going to get a job, applying for a job, dressing up and all that, I didn't really have those skills. And going out, wanting to find a job but not knowing how was awkward, and then asking somebody for help was awkward. But as time went on, people would understand that we know this is awkward for you.
Mm-hmm.
And here, let me help you anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that supportive community helped out a lot. And then again, my commitment, it's like, okay, I'm not going to leave. I'm going to stay here and see what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. And something that you're starting to touch on that we talked about a little bit during the pre-show, it's not about just providing shelter. A lot of times, looking at the larger issue of homelessness, I think a lot of times in our cultural and political conversation, there seems to be this naive perception, and if we just provide housing, if we provide shelter, problem solved. And that seems to be almost a very low impact approach to it, and certainly very naive. Could you talk some more about what that whole, what it really takes to help people?
Okay, yeah. Being in the middle of it, I mean, just living immersed in it, adapting the mindset and the lifestyle and all of that stuff, coming out of it, just giving someone a place to live isn't going to be sufficient.
Mm.
It isn't. And because I've had places to live. I mean, jail, and I get out and do the
Yeah.
same thing again. But I look at it as more of a four-prong approach. There's the mental health component, because if you're out there for a long period of time, you're going to experience some sort of trauma. That's a given. You're going to have depression, anxiety, all types of other things, PTSD. There's the substance use component, because sometimes you have to anesthetize yourself somehow to be able to cope with even facing yourself. And then you have to look at the housing component, of course. And then the other one is you have to think about the finances, not just giving somebody money, but allowing them the capability or the opportunity to be able to earn some money so that they can develop some self-esteem and some self-worth. All four of those components, I think, if you're able to blend it together and allow it to occur, then I think transition can happen. Because I know when I look at my
Mm-hmm.
story, I applied that philosophy, or I can dissect it and look at it. And as I moved along by getting employment or getting education, having a safe place, because just because you have a roof over your head doesn't mean that it's a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And so having a safe place and then starting to look at, you know, how do I deal with this PTSD? And how do I deal with finding closure to that early childhood trauma that
Well,
somehow.
and that's something that you mentioned in your book. It seems that that's frighteningly common in terms of the percentage of people that are homeless that have a history, and also have drug and alcohol problems, that have a history of childhood physical and emotional abuse.
Yes, yes. And what's really fascinating is your brain's going to do whatever it can to save your ego. It's going to go in survival mode. It will suppress that thinking just so that you can exist today.
Mm-hmm.
What I was able to do after I stayed sober long enough was to go and unlock some of those hidden childhood messages and find the truth of it and come to grips with it and accept it, because there's nothing I could do about my childhood. That's just reality. And I'm all for it. If somebody needs to go to therapy to deal with that, then that's fine and dandy. But if you're out on the streets trying to transition into a normal life, sometimes therapy isn't going to be there.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
finding comfort in somebody enough that you can talk about what happened and experience the emotions that come from it and find a closure in that will help you become more comfortable in what you're going to do in your current moments. And as long as you can be able to find that comfort, then the rest of the stuff that you're exposed to, the new lifestyle, the employment, the making friends, the education, all that becomes easier because you don't have that hidden message telling you something to stop your growth.
Mm-hmm.
I would
It,
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think a lot of people have that, thing going on in their head. If other people said to them what they say to themselves, I know it's certainly true for me at times, looking in the mirror in the morning or realizing I haven't been able to look myself in the mirror for several days. If someone else said that to me, we would have a very harsh conversation about it. But yet
Hmm.
that rings, I think a lot of us experience that. What you're talking about is that's just on steroids.
Yeah, and it's really fascinating because most personalities and everything is formed in early childhood,
Hmm.
and it's interesting some of the things that sticks with us or some of the things we tend to believe. I can look at my past and my history and my childhood and smile because I found closure, I found acceptance, you know, and I was given a message that no matter what you try, you're not going to be good enough. Now that's a tough road to navigate. That no matter what you do,
Yeah. It's like,
it isn't going to be.
why bother?
Why bother? Exactly. And so I lived that way for a long time. And then once I got through the whole drug addiction and homeless thing, I still had to look at that because how can I go to school with a hidden message that says you're not going to succeed?
Hmm.
How can
Wow. Yeah.
and so I had to look at that and I had to come to realize that for one thing, the message I was given probably wasn't true, you
Hmm.
know, and I had to even go deeper and look at the messenger only delivered what the messenger was taught. And the messenger in this case is my mom. She only passed on what she knew. But now that I know better, then great, I can accept that. And so, yeah, that message is over. The new message is I can accomplish anything I want if I put in a proper time, effort, and patience. And when you get things accomplished, then that just reinforces that new message. Well, yes, you are a success story. If you're homeless and you're able to find somebody that you can trust, that's a success story. You know,
Hmm.
and pat yourself on the back for the small accomplishments, and they will grow into something big. But
Mm.
the other side of the coin is
Yes.
the people who deal with the individuals that's homeless, their mindset may have to be mildly adjusted too.
Wow. Yes. And what I'd like to also, if you could, I should have touched on this when we started so that people can understand where, how much of a transition it's been for you. You mentioned education. You took advantage of opportunity to finish your GED. You've gone to college, that you're a registered nurse. You're running a incredible program, the C.A.R.E program, which I'd like to touch on next. Could you tell us where you're at today in terms
Uh,
of that journey in education and in life?
okay. Where I'm at today, I am currently the director of nursing services at a small psychiatric hospital. I'm currently a teacher at a community college. I own a corporation, which is C.A.R.E. I am an author of the book From Park Bench to Park Avenue. I just bought an abandoned mansion to give to the homeless people.
Oh,
I
yes.
and yeah, and my education, I have I don't know, probably 5 degrees,
Wow.
2 licenses, and God knows how many certificates. I am I smile when I tell people I have more initials behind my name than I do in my name.
And it's a huge achievement. And it's even more, yeah, I think you deserve even more congratulations given where you started.
And yes, I
So,
started out, I quit school in the 8th grade,
oh
plain and
my
simple,
gosh.
because I was homeless when I was 14. And I got my GED in the county jail. I actually did.
Mm, wow.
And when I started going to college, because I attempted to go to college, but it's really hard to go to college when you're under influence of methamphetamine. It's really hard. And it's hard to go to college when you're homeless. But I made a commitment that I'm gonna finish whatever it is I've ever started. That was one of the commitments to myself. And so going back and retaking those courses and completing them
Hmm.
because my mind was sober, my living situations was different. my desire for change was strong enough that no matter what I do, I was going to complete it. Even if I had to repeat it, I'm going to complete it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to go back and I completed that first class. And that gave me the comfortability to try the second class and then the third class. And when I got my first certificate, my associate's degree, I pat myself on the back. I did the happy dance. I'm like, look what you can do.
Yeah.
And then, then I said, okay, well, what's next? If you can do this, then what else can you do? And so I went forth and I applied for my license, and I got my license as a psychiatric technician. And once I got that, I said, okay, well, what's next? And then I went and got my registered nursing license. And then I said, what's next? Then I got my Bachelor
Mm-hmm.
of Science degree. Then what's next? I got my public health nursing license. And I was telling myself, you're on a roll, keep going. But one thing I cannot leave out the equation is my relationship with my higher power, who I choose to call God, because I rely on that source for almost everything. That's the foundation, and I can't ever forget that, because
Mm-hmm.
doors have opened around me that others would have thought were permanently shut. I have a bunch of drug offenses, been in and out of prison, but yet I'm gifted the ability to pass out medications. I'm gifted the ability to have a license to pass out to distribute medications. And I share with some people in certain circles. I laugh because all my life I wanted to be a drug dealer, and now I have a license for it. But
Yeah, I apologize. The irony of that is
yes,
just
yeah,
amazing, and also that's a powerful message. As you're watching this, think about what's going on in your life, and perhaps it's someone that you know. Unbelievable things can happen no matter where you're starting from today.
I,
And what a great example you set of that, Anthony. And it seems, I like that phrase, the faith in something bigger than yourself being the foundation for everything else.
yeah. It's I've always, as a little kid, I've always been introduced to church and
Hmm.
institutions and things like that. And I just had one idea of what God was. And that idea was he's one in the rescue business. Now, being out there, being homeless and doing drugs, there's been multiple occasions where it's like, oh God, please help me, or I have fear because I'm going to court and I might get locked up longer than what I wanted were anticipated. Oh God, please help me.
Hmm.
Once I was in or on my recovery journey at 2 years of sobriety, I I call it my little my God shot. I was sitting at the park one day and I looked up with complete abandon and I said, you know what, God, I know cars run on gas and I know concrete objects are solid. I know this for a fact. And I said, you know what? If you're there, let me know if you're still in the miracle business. That was a question I asked directly, complete, sober, and the results of that question helped propel me into the man I am today.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I mean, I can't add anything to that. And again, as you're watching this, think about that. How is that working or not working in your life? And can you help carry that message to someone around you as well? And then also in the recovery world, service is a huge part of that spirituality, that faith process, or at least as I've experienced it, and the ability to help others. Yeah, helps. Is also part of that foundation. You created the C.A.R.E program. Could you explain more what that's about and how that came to be?
The C.A.R.E program came about when I was in school becoming a psych tech, and
Hmm.
it's really fascinating because I was working in treatment at that time, and I was sitting on a bench because I didn't have a car. And I got a phone call that said, "Hey, can you create a dual diagnosis program for our company?" And I said, "Would you like for me to do one?" They said yes, and I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And so I just created the C.A.R.E program inside of a treatment program, and the C.A.R.E program was designed for individuals that have dual diagnosis, those that have substance abuse issues and mental health issues, and how to
Oh,
deal with those
wow.
simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
I started it there, and then I left that treatment program, and I just let it sit. And then something came about that says, you know what? Why don't you just make it portable so that you can help other individuals? And so that's where it is today. We're able to go to different places and do lectures, workshops, seminars, whatever it is that can aid individuals in their recovery from either substance use or mental health or both. And so I go, and now because of the COVID and social distancing and things like that, I do lectures and things from a distance. I do groups from a distance, but it's all about
Oh,
how can I
and
educate
and
people?
it still works, being able to do the distance version of it.
Yes, yes, yes,
Brilliant.
yeah. And so that's where C.A.R.E came about. And C.A.R.E stands for Coordinating and Assisting Recovery Environments.
Mm,
And when
okay.
you look at our website, and I think right behind me over here, right behind me is our little C.A.R.E symbol. And it has meaning. The broken lines mean something. The care coming in the heart, because care rises from the heart. There's a big definition about exactly what that means. And I was given that idea again from what I feel is my higher power, and it's the best thing I could do to be able to assist people. And so far, it's worked. I love educating individuals. I firmly believe that the more you know, the more you'll grow, and education is a big key to success. And so that's what we
Mhm.
do at C.A.R.E, not just um, counselors or nurses, or we help out individuals. We can go to the home and help set up some plans, because I believe always in least restrictive environments. I would rather go home and help you adjust to being at home with whatever issues you got, opposed to having to go to some psychiatric hospital
Wow,
and
really?
dealing with you there. Yes.
Okay.
And so we set up plans of care and things of that nature.
That's incredible. And as you've pursued education, you've also done it in a very action-oriented way, where as you've continued to learn, part of what I've heard in reading your story and in the conversation we've been having is you learn and you apply. You learn and you apply,
Yeah.
which seems it's a very action-oriented life that you've built.
It's once you learn something and you apply it, then you see how it works. And then you can normalize it. It makes a lot of sense. So it's easy to utilize that tool. Just like when it comes to therapeutic communication, it's easy for me to sit and create conversations in which individuals will reply back and help themselves resolve some of their issues. But that
Hmm.
takes practice. The same thing with medications and side effects, and all of that other stuff. And it's really great being able to take information that you learn from a book and see how it actually works. And with me, I'm gifted with that extra caveat is I was homeless. I know what that is. And
Yeah.
so I can mirror those really easy. I can understand the whole theory behind Maslow's hierarchy of need. I can understand why I ate out of a dumpster, not caring about getting some disease, because food is more important to me than safety.
Hmm.
I understand that because of the
Wow.
education I got and tying it to my life experience.
Well, and it seems that puts you in a it helps being able to make more of a powerful connection with the people that you work with, and also the people that you teach. Being able to come from that position of particularly those that you work with, where it makes that connection of, oh, he knows, he's been there.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I'm the director of nursing. I'm the
Hmm.
director, and one thing about coming from where I come from to getting to where I'm at, there's still some stigma out there.
Hmm.
There's still some people who, for whatever reason, may have a negative idea of what homeless people or who they are. And so it takes a lot to get trust, which I can understand. I mean, believe me, I burnt bridges like I had a flamethrower. But some people won't give you the benefit of the doubt or give you the chance based upon what your history is. And so once I arrived at being a director of nursing, I had to be really cautious about what my history was. But then, as normally, I prayed and I was just told to take the next indicated steps. So I wrote a book, and now my life is an open book. The whole world knows it. And what I'm able to do now is whenever I speak with a client who is going through some paranoia, or speak with a client who is struggling with substance abuse, or speak with somebody who has given up on even wanting to try because they'll say, well, what's the use? I'm not going to get anything accomplished. I can reach back and go, I understand what you're going through, not just by theoretically, but I actually understand. And I'm able to go back and give a brief illustration of the same situation that they're walking through so that we can walk together to get to the end of whatever their dilemma is. And I find that to be a gift. It's rewarding to watch the light bulb come on and to see people be able to get that strong desire to want to be something in life. And that's the
Yes.
whole thing, I want to encourage people to want to be something.
Well,
And
and a lot of times I think, the larger cultural issue is we talk a lot about rehabilitation, second chances and whatnot. And yet we do everything as a culture that it seems we possibly can to make sure that people that have had some trouble in their past get defined by that, as opposed to being able to allow them to move forward the way you have. Right. Because
yes,
it's people that, if anyone has been homeless for any length of time, I would imagine they've had some encounter with law enforcement. They probably have a record that puts them in a position where, on paper, a lot of people that have never had any experience with that world will look at it and go, yeah, I don't think so.
mm-hmm.
I don't want to take the risk. How can we better navigate that?
Well, I think and this is why I'm a big advocate, because
Mm-hmm.
it's really fascinating, because I have sort of like two different lives. For those who don't know me, um, they get to see this teacher. They get to see this author. They get to see this director of nursing, and their approach to me is completely different than if they would have seen me 22 years ago. And it's really, and I feel really thrilled or gifted or happy or blessed or whatever I want to put on it, that I'm able to sit down and have conversations with people and be able to bring them to at least a point where they would say, well, then what if what you say is true? What if what you're telling me, that this person can become someone? Okay, what could I do? Or how could you demonstrate that this can happen? Because a lot of people always say, well, there's proof in the pudding. Okay, great. You want proof? Hello. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
here's proof. And it's really interesting, considering everything's on the internet. Some people, because I know when I wrote my book, a lot of my subordinates at work would be like, no, there's no way that's you. It's like, yeah, it is,
Well, it's not you.
and
It's not you today,
it's not me
right?
today.
I mean, through the process you've gone through, the work that you've done, you are not the same man that you were when that police officer asked if you wanted a cigarette.
Right, right. I am not the same person. My attitude and outlook towards life is different. My mindset is different. I had to go through a lot of education to reprogram my thought processing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fascinating, because I can explain all the way down to a whole neurotransmitter level of what occurred in my brain through neuroplasticity. And I find that intriguing and fascinating. And it gives me this hunger to want to be educated more, to want to gain more knowledge. But under the same token, if I did certain things, I could revert back to that individual.
Oh, okay.
And that part has a healthy fear, you know, and I just don't dabble in that area, because I already know what that's like.
Hmm.
and this helps me out with dealing with people in early recovery. I understand that transition, that struggle,
Yeah.
and when they tell me they're craving and they want to use, I understand that, but let's keep moving forward. Let's look out the windshield, not in the rearview mirror, so that we can, prosper.
Hmm. Yes. Very powerful. And it's recovered. We're recovered, not cured.
No, there's
Right.
a ham is cured.
Yes. So it's continuing to do the work. I'm watching the clock, and I want to be respectful of your time. And I want to ask about you mentioned the mansion that you bought, which is wonderfully called Brown Manor. What's happened? How did you come to do that? And that's in Mansfield, Ohio, I understand.
Yeah, it's in Mansfield, Ohio. Um, it life itself is full of stories, and there's a story behind Brown Manor. I have a brother that is in his addictions, and God bless him. I understand what that's going on, but he contacted me one day and told me that he didn't have a place to live, and I'm doing fairly decent in life, and I told him, I will help you, and he was saying that he was living in some abandoned doctor's office or something, and I offered to purchase that building so he can actually live in it, but he couldn't make the connection. So that situation frustrated me enough that I said, okay, I'm just gonna buy a building, and maybe one day he'll move in it. So I bought an abandoned mansion. I bought a 9,000 square foot house.
Whoa.
Yes, and I bought it without ever seeing it. I seen pictures of it and videos of it, but I'd never been there, and I paid for this house. And when I went to see the house, because it was built in 1916, and when I
Oh my
went,
gosh.
yeah, and when I went and seen the house the first time, I went in. I think it was 6 o'clock in the evening, and I walk in the door. The very first thing I seen was a dried bat hanging off the light
Oh
bulb,
no.
and I'm like, oh my God, what did I buy?
Yeah.
And I looked, and all I seen was a mess because it was an abandoned mansion. And I went back to my hotel room and do what I normally do. I got on my knees, I prayed. I said, okay, what do you want me to do? I went back the next day and opened that door, and I seen the most beautiful place I could ever imagine my whole life. I seen there's stained glass windows in that
Hmm.
house. There's features that were constructed in 1916 that you can't replicate.
Yeah.
And
Because the architecture and the craftsmanship and details from that era can just be incredibly beautiful. It-
yes, and I was just like, when I walked in with this new vision, I realized that number one, this is God's place that He allows me to have, because I was told from that park bench that life is temporary. Everything you got isn't yours. You get to play
Mm,
with it because you can't take it with you.
yeah.
So if you have it, give it to somebody if you can. And so when I walked back into the house with a new vision, I said, okay, this is Brown Manor. I love it. And I'm going to give it to the homeless people because I want them to have something elegant. It's fascinating how if you put somebody in an environment that fosters love and growth and warmth and acceptance, you will become part of that environment. But I also know that being in a homeless community, it would do nobody any service if I put 10 people in that little house, because you would move literally the mindset of a homeless community into a house, and it would eventually
Mm,
become another homeless community.
yeah.
And so
Yeah. Well,
Brown Manor,
it's amazing what becomes normal based on our experience and the environment that we put ourselves in.
exactly. And I was blessed or gifted or whatever that I lived in that. So I know. And so I decided in a 9,000
Wait,
square foot.
wait a minute. That's an ironic and beautiful statement that I want to make sure doesn't get missed as you're watching this. Think about that. Anthony's experience, 23 years homeless, living in the streets, is now a blessing in life. How does that happen? right? I mean, it's kind of a rhetorical question because you've just been explaining for the last 30 minutes, how that happened. But you look at that and it gives me chills because that's the kind of stuff that's supposed to be impossible.
it's it's
Wow.
impossible to it's it could be impossible if that's your mindset. I
Mm,
I
yes.
found an infinite being that nothing is impossible. Now things might not occur when I want it,
Hmm.
which I have that conversation with God, and things might not occur the way I want it. But what does happen is my ability to see it as it is and adjust my mindset to it. Everything is an opportunity for education. And with that mindset, I always get the gift of learning.
Mm,
And
yes.
so, the combination of me being homeless, knowing what it's like to live in a community, knowing that wherever I go with my community, that environment becomes part of my community. I will
Yeah.
not move a community into a house that's designed to help people get better. Now, what I will do is in a 9,000 square foot house, I will allow 6 people to be there. That gives everybody enough space to grow and to help support growth. And as they transition from that mindset and develop this new way of thinking, then we could bring other people on and then pass it on. And so, as one person comes in homeless and hopeless and learn to accept this new way of living and learn to get educated, learn some value of work and start working and becoming productive and things like that, then the next man can come in and do
So,
the same.
so those first 6 people are actually the beginning of a new community that as it grows, you can continue grows and solidifies, then you can invite other individuals into.
Exactly. And those 6
Wow. Yeah.
will help produce 6 more
Hmm.
and it will continue on. If people ask me, how do you resolve the homeless problem? I just gave you the recipe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Create a new community. Don't move. And we do that, especially in large cities like Los Angeles. We see a lot of that. It's like, well, let's take a hotel that's abandoned or because of during the COVID shutdown isn't operating, and let's just move everybody in there. And all
right.
it's doing, I've never having that's the power of having coming from a place of experience as well as education. You have experienced the folly in that and know why it won't work because it's just moving the community to another location.
That's all you're doing. And I applaud people trying to help,
Yeah.
but let's look at it a little differently. The housing part is just one part. There's
Hmm.
those other three. There's the financial part, which includes working, which brings self-esteem. There's the psychological part, which includes let's figure out a way to, you know, develop a different mindset. Let's find
Hmm.
some closure to some of the old wounds. And then there's, the substance use part. If we can hit all of that, then we could do it. But it's really hard to do when you take 30 or 40 people who have that community mindset.
Yeah.
Because once one person starts doing well, then the other 29 are gonna, you know, maybe convince them that is not a good idea.
Crabs in a bucket. When
Exactly.
you go crabbing, you put one crab in a bucket, you're going to lose it. You put three
Right.
in a bucket, you don't have to worry because the other two pull, one starts climbing out, the other two pull them back down.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that's my big thing as far as being an advocate, because
Hmm.
I know a model that does work. I I am the test project.
Yep.
And one thing I
Yes.
know for sure, and it's really fascinating because you can do research and you can see mugshots and everything. You know,
Hmm.
my story is true. It is my story. I embrace it because it's just part of the stream of thing called life. This is what I was given.
Yeah. And it embeds some of the things that we hear in the rooms of recovery in the 12-step recovery community in terms of, take action, take different action than you've been taking. Associate with people that have that light in their eyes and you see, they've got something that you want in terms of what's happening in their life, who they are. Work through the addiction problems because a hard lesson for me is, alcohol and drugs isn't really the problem. got to get that out of the way to get to the other issues which you've been describing so well, to work through those, and to being self-supporting through
Mm-hmm.
our own contributions, the power in that, the self-esteem that builds, to say, yeah, you know what, I really am independent, I'm making my way in the world.
Exactly. And it's fascinating that you brought that up, because I had a situation yesterday, because I work at a hospital, and of course we're governed by different agencies, and we had a surveyor come to make sure that we're staying compliant to all the COVID regulations and things of that nature. And so the surveyor's there, and there's a lot of stress going on. And since I'm the director, everything gets channeled to me. And sometimes in a stressful situation, I don't react in the most cordial way. And
Yes,
so,
I have the same. I tend to become, shall we say, a little blunt and direct.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, after all of it was done and the dust settled, I went to my boss and I go, I have to make amends to this other employee, because I'm the supervisor, and what she did I felt was inappropriate, but it was it was in the heat of the moment. Okay.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Everything calmed down, and I went to my boss and go, I'm gonna have to apologize to this lady. And she's like, why? And I explained to her. And she goes, well, why do you say you have to apologize? And I go, I've learned that it's important for me to continue to take personal inventory, and when I'm wrong, promptly admit it.
Yes.
And she looked at me and she goes, can you say that again? Well, I've been saying that statement for a long time.
Yeah.
And I told her again, and she goes, that's fascinating. And people don't realize that when you're able to look at whatever it is that you've done wrong and recorrect that, then that not only gives another person relief, but it gives you relief.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
that's
and from a place, I love the way that you framed that, because it's coming from a place of not asking for forgiveness and act like it never happened. It's going, hey, how can I set this right with you?
right, right. And it's really interesting. My gardener's here.
And that's because I'm watching the clock, and I've had you longer than I promised I would. This is a good place to wrap up. And I just wanted to ask, how can we stay in touch with you, learn more about what's happening, opportunities to get involved with Brown Manor, and continue to
We
be
have a
part of what you're
GoFundMe
doing.
page. We have a GoFundMe page for Brown Manor. I think it's GoFundMeBrownManor.com. My website is AnthonyHowardBrown.com. Everything I do, all the proceeds go towards Brown Manor. I have a book out there, From Park Bench to Park Avenue. It's available at Amazon. There's a bookstore in Long Beach. Easy Does It. They carry it. If I'm more than happy to come and speak any place or Zoom, anything. My website for the company, CAREDD.org. If you need some education or CPR, or I get to do a lot of things, but all the proceeds all goes towards being able to provide a place for somebody that's not as fortunate as I am today. So those are,
Mm.
the many avenues that I have. And I appreciate the opportunity, Wolf, that you've given me to sit and share. And I just love carrying the message, and being an advocate. I get to be the voice for those people who have something to say.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's who I am.
Yes. And thank you so much for being so open, because, and you touched on this, with and this is giving me chills again, the life that you have today, the position of responsibility that you have today, to be so open about your past, since you've written the book, like you said, it's truly is an open book in all the detail, all the glory, as they say. That's a huge risk, and certainly demonstrates how strong you are in your faith, and how much you rely on turning it over to your higher power.
Yeah, and that's what I was told to do. Just because when I got the house, I'm like, okay, God, how am I supposed to pay for it? And he's like, well, write a book.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay. And even now, I laugh, because I'll wake up, because I'm extremely busy doing PowerPoints and all of that. And sometimes I get on my knees and I'm like, God, I'm tired. And God is like, I'm not. And I'm like, okay,
Oh,
and then I
yeah.
just take the next indicated step. And I found a God that I have a really, really, really close relationship with, and I speak to God as if He's my best friend, you
Hmm.
know. And I love saying, God, I'm tired, and I get little messages like, well, so is Moses. What's the point, you know? And
Ooh,
so,
yes.
and I'm like, all right, and then that just makes me have to do what's in front of me, and then results is at the end something productive happens, and
Hmm.
I want to not only share that message, but I want to mimic the behavior so that other people can see what it's like to demonstrate. I want other people to see what it's like to be able to write a book or purchase a mansion or go to work every day or become a teacher or get some education. I want them to see it. I want them to hear it. And if they need guidance, I want to be there or at least help educate other people to be there for them. That's one of the gifts of being a teacher. You know, I was asked when I got hired as a teacher, they said, well, why do you want to be a teacher? You know, and I told them, I'm not rich and I'm not a politician. So the best thing I could do to change the world is to educate.
Yes,
And here I am, you know, educating.
absolutely. And Anthony, thank you so much for educating me more. I enjoyed reading your book. I've learned a lot through the conversation that we had today as well. As you're watching this, reach out to Anthony. You know, AnthonyHowardBrown.com. It's in the, and you can see it on the video, AnthonyHowardBrown.com. Help, you know, it's an opportunity to learn more. If you are looking for help with programs for employee assistance, perhaps, you know, reach out
Mhm.
to in your companies, reach out to Anthony. If you'd like to get involved with Brown Manor, you know, that's a way to connect is through Anthony's website. Anthony, thank you so much. It was a great conversation, and I look forward to, you know, talking with you more in the future.
All right, thanks. Well, appreciate you.